So we continue our reading of Ma'arat HaNashim by Rabbi Gedalia ibn Yahya, and we got to Michal bat Shaul, Michal the daughter of Shaul, Shmirat Sod. This refers to the incident when she protected her husband David from Shaul. Shaul tried to kill him. He sent actually people to ambush the house to wait for David to come out so he could kill him. And Michal used the classic trick of hiding a mannequin or a doll in his bed. She basically used hides and pretended that he was sleeping. Every time the guards asked where is David, he said he's still ill. He can't leave the house. Finally, Shaul lost his patience, and he told the guards, just bring him with the bed. And when they approached the bed, they realized that he's not there. So she's the one who could keep secret. Abigail is the wife of Naval HaKarmeli, who was able to convince David to not attack her husband when he didn't pay him. Batsheva, Tahora, purity, and that it was hard to associate with that because David sees Batsheva bathing on the roof, but Grossman comments here, probably it's true, that מסתבר שהתכוון לטהרותה מטומאת הנידה לפני שדוד הזמינה לביתו, that she bathed in the mikveh before David called her over, even though that she didn't know that he's going to call her. It says והיא מטהרת מטומאתה. האישה התקועית, מתן עצה, the woman of Tekoa. This refers to an incident also in the book of Shemuel, where after David banished Avshalom from his palace, the woman of Tekoa manages to come back and convince him to take his son back. Tamar bat David, nesiat herpa. Tamar, the daughter of David, being able to carry the shame, and that's another one of those things that are a little exaggerated. Tamar bat David was, as we know, was violated by her brother Amnon, and she begs him after he violated her. He kicked her out of his house. He says, "Leave," and she says, "Please keep me here because Ana ulichet harpati. Where am I going to take my shame?" Apparently, that was acceptable. Would have been acceptable for her to live with him, even though they were step siblings. But I would not use it definitely as a positive thing. But like we said, he's stretching it to an extreme. Haisha me'avel bet ma'acha chokhmah. That's another situation where a woman in the book of Shemuel conducts in this case, she conducts a negotiation with Yoav, and she says, if you're trying to get someone, we will hand him over to you. Don't attack the whole city. Avishaga Shunamit, Yofi, that you could have found a lot of many women in the Tanakh that are praised with beauty, not necessarily Avishaga Shunamit, but probably he went by order. There's nothing much that you could say about Avishaga Shunamit. She's the woman who was brought to David at his old age, where he suffered from basically called inability to warm himself. Is a strange story. Malkat Sheva, Ahava, the king of Sheba, love, that she had love for Shlomo, and actually that the perfect character trait that you could have associated with the queen of Sheba is wisdom, because she comes to Shlomo to test his wisdom. So that means that she was a wise woman herself. Haisha Tzarfatit, Istabkut Bemuat, the woman of Tzorfat. Tzorfat is probably in Lebanon. In modern Hebrew, already in medieval times, the rabbis associated Tzarfat with France, and that's how it's called today, Tzarfat. But it is mentioned in the book of Melachim regarding the travels of Eliyahu, and Eliyahu gets to this place called Tzorfat, he asks a woman that he sees there to provide for him. She says, I only have this little jar of oil and a little flour. And from that, Rabbi Gedalia ibn Yahya says that he sees the character trait of not wanting much, of living with the minimum provisions. But that also is a little out of context, because when she said, I have only a little oil and a little flour, that was out of necessity, not because that's what she wanted to eat. And as a matter of fact, she ends her statement to the Prophet by saying, that's all I have. I'm going to make from this, for me and my son, a little piece of bread, and after we eat it, we probably will die of hunger. So, not a very strong proof here. Eshet HaNavi shebiksha siyam Elisha zechut, the prophet's wife who asked Elisha to help her merit. She had the merit of her husband. Again, not a specific personal character trait. Aisha Shunamit Yehus, the woman of Shunem, is also in the book of Melachim, the woman who held on to the prophet Elisha and provided for him. She and her husband built for him a special room, and she's described as a prestigious woman. So Yehus, respect within the community. Yehosheva bat HaMelech Yoram Rahamanut. Yehosheva is the wife of Yoram, who saved Yoash, the youngest child of Yoram, from the king's mother Atalia, who went on a rampage. She killed all of when the king was killed by Yehu, the king's mother, or the queen mother, assassinated all the relatives, all the children, her grandchildren, in order to become the queen. And only one child was saved by Yehosheva. That's the king. That's Yoash, who later on became king. So she has this character trait of loving kindness, of mercy. She took care of the kid. Ha'alma eshet Yeshayahu Tohar. That is a famous maiden that caused a lot of problems with Christianity. The verse in Isaiah where it says, "Hineh ha'alma harav yoladet ben v'karat shemo Emmanuel." The maiden is going to be pregnant and have a child, and he should be called Emmanuel. The Christians learn from here that the alma they read as a young girl who's a virgin yet, and therefore that is a proof for the Immaculate Conception and the birth of Jesus. But the text doesn't speak about it. Alma could be a woman, could be a married woman. However, Gedalia ibn Yahya takes from it the concept of toha, of purity, which is not really clear how he takes it from there. Maybe because she's the one who gives birth to the Redeemer. Then Huldah Nevuah. Huldah is mentioned in the book of Melachim as the person who was consulted, as the woman who was consulted by the king when they found the scroll in the temple in Melachim Bet Perik of Gimel, chapter 23 of Second Melachim. Esther Hesed, Esther loving kindness. I would have said that Esther is an example of immense wisdom, as well as the ability to move other. In my opinion, she just basically she pulled the strings and manipulated Mordechai, Haman, and Hashverosh into the situation that she wanted. But anyway, it seems that he already had a list of character traits that he first associated with whomever he could, and then added some others. Yehudit, those are the two ex-biblical characters, Yehudit and Beruria. Yehudit is the one who's, according to the book of Maccabees, killed Holofernes. She killed the Greek general who tried to who followed the rule of the senior that every woman should be brought to the general or to the leader of the foreign army. So she has the character. She represents the character of Ithaskut, of being strong or getting that strength. And Finally, Beruya Eshet Rabbi Meir Tvuna. Beruya, the wife of Rabbi Meir, wisdom. And remember, we mentioned Beruya last time. She's the one who mocked Rabbi Yosef Aglili for talking to her, and eventually she was mocked by the rabbis and the commentators. They didn't like the fact that there is a woman who is so knowledgeable. Now, Grossman comments here, and I agree with him, and with Gedaliah ibn Yahya, that generally the status of women in the Bible is pretty positive, especially positive in comparison to the contemporary culture. When we think of Avraham asking Sarah for permission to present her as his sister, Yaakov talking to his wife, Yitzhak and Rivka having a dialogue, even though they were not the best at communication. The characters of Miriam the prophet, Huldah the prophet, queens, and other powerful women and wise women, one could really say that the Mikra presents the woman, if not in a totally positive light, but in a much better way than she is presented in the surrounding cultures of the time. But then there's a serious decline. There's a serious decline in women's status in Mishnaic and rabbinic literature, and though he doesn't say that, most probably it is because the Greek philosophers and Greek culture in general treated women in that manner, and the Jews were influenced by them. So that's the first part of Gedaliah's book. In the second part, he's trying to argue that women are superior than men, and it's programmatic. Definitely, he has an agenda, and it's good that he has an agenda that to balance all the negativity that we've seen from other authors. And he used the Bible, he used the rabbinic literature, and he used his own experience to say the following. Ha'isha, here is in the screen. Zot ha'isha hanitzvet le'omatenu, the woman that we see, meaning the woman in general, hi birya mefo'ara u'me'usheret. She's a glorious being, and me'usheret. Now, I would say that the translation of me'usheret here is not happy or joyous, as we say today, me'ushar, but rather from the concept of ishur, of approval, that she has an approval, meaning the approval of God in her creation. V'chima'at she'omar en kamoa b'chol haaretz, and I would almost say that there's none like her in the world, that women are better than men. V'zeu l'shevach u'l'tihila, to be praised and exalted. V'zeu le'arbe sibot. What are the sibot? Let's see his reasons. One, and it's interesting because some of them are used by other commentators for the opposite. We'll see that. So he says this: Ha'isha hi ha'yitzur ha'aron shenivra alei adamot. We usually hear that talk about men being the crown of creation because he was the last one to be created. So if man was created last, that means that he's the most important because everything was there ready for him. And Rabbi Gedaliah follows that logic, and he says the woman was created last, so she must be superior to men. And that's a very good argument. It's hard to refute, especially since the Midrash says, and he quotes it here from Bereshit Rabbah, Yutet Gimel, 19:3, Amar Rav Yehuda bar Simon, Kol ma shenivra ha'havero, shalid b'havero. Whatever was created last is superior to that which was created before him, or before it. Second, he says this, Hagever nivra me'afar ha'aretz, שהוא יסוד בזוי שהכל דוחים עליו מדרך כף רגל לכל יושבי תבל. Man was created from the dust of the earth, which is a lower element, a base element that everybody steps on. ואילו האישה נבראה מחלק שמור ואיכותי, whereas the woman was created from a more reserved and a unique element, the rib. ובבריאת האישה לא נכנס ואפילו גרגיר אחד של עפר. In the creation of woman, there's not one grain of dust. This is in the letter bet. It's the in the Midrash Rabbah, they look at the bones or the flesh or whatever the woman was created from as inferior to dust, for a different reason, because it could rot, because it's when you hit a bone on a hard object, you will hear sound, means more vocal, more blatant, and here he takes it and shows us that you could just as well take it in the other direction, and which is true, dust versus a human being. Is number 3 here? It's not the whole. So there are 24 originally, and here he mentioned all of 24. The third is הגבר נברא מיסוד אחד בלבד שהוא עפר הארץ. Man was created from one element only, dust, and the woman was created from one of the members, one of the organs of man, the rib, which in itself has different elements. When he says yesodot shonim, he doesn't think as we think of bone cells and marrow and sinews, etc., but rather along the ideas of the phlegm, the 4 phlegms, the 4 colors of Greek science: green, white, black, and red. But anyway, it's a composite creature or being compared to the one-sided, one-faceted men. I think that some women would agree with that men have a more flat personality than that of women, and most men would probably disagree with that. I don't know, but let's leave it at that. In number 4, it says that the purpose of any action and in planting a tree is the goal is bearing fruits. Man is like the root and trunk of the tree, but the woman who was created from one of his organs becomes the branch who bears fruits, and then therefore ha'isha ikar v'tachlit abinyan. The woman is the essence and the purpose of the construction or the building. Number 5, the woman helps men in daily life. Without her, his life would be full of sufferings. Man would not have been able to carry the toil, to carry the burden of the world on his shoulders without the woman. 6, only few mitzvot were given as an obligation to the woman, and that shows that she is better than men, and it is enough for her to have few mitzvot to achieve great spiritual achievements. This argument has become popular. It's the one most widely used today in religious schools in Israel. When women ask, why are we not obligated in this and this and this and that, shofar, sukkah, mitzvah sukkah, tefillin, etc., they will say, because you're better, because you're of a higher level. That's an interesting argument, but just have in mind that it's the idea of exempting women from some of the mitzvot is something that has developed in rabbinic literature, and the biblical proof for it is very, very weak. That we're not doing rabbinical literature, but if we would, the sugya to study would be in Masechet Kiddushin, where at the end of the first chapter, where the Talmud discusses this whole concept of time-dependent mitzvot and says that women are exempt from them. And over there you could see that the argument is pretty circular, meaning they're exempt from A because they're exempt from B. They're exempt from B because they don't deserve C. They don't deserve C because they're exempt from A. So, but where is the starting point? How do I know that this is it? There are a lot of things missing there logically and textually. And it seems that in this case the arrow was shot first, and then the target or the bullseye was drawn around it. Say first the decision was made, we're not going to include women in these mitzvot, and then and then they were trying to find the proof text to show it, because it doesn't make sense to rely only on the biblical language of Bnei Israel versus Benot Israel, because this is the default language in the Hebrew language. Yes, Revital.
Quickly, like in 3 sentences, explain why. I'm familiar with this mitzvot shehazman graman. Why does time have anything to do with what women are exempt from?
Right. So that is another serious problem with this rule, because the original statement was not to try to group those mitzvot under mitzvot shazman gramam, mitzvot that are time dependent, was actually problematic. Just briefly, we'll touch on that. The whole issue of mitzvot aseh shazman gramam. The Mishnah speaks about the obligation of teaching Torah to one's children. This is here. The Mishnah says this: Kol mitzvot ben alav here. V'chol mitzvat aseh shazman grama, anashim hayavim v'nashim p'turot. V'chol mitzvat aseh shelo hazman grama, echad ha'anashim v'echad ha'anashim hayavim. I mean, any time-bound mitzvah, men are obligated and women are exempt. And all positive mitzvot that are not time-bound, both men and women are obligated. And when it comes to prohibitions, it applies to all of them. Then the mitzvah, what are the mitzvot that called mitzvot ben ala'av? The father must circumcise his son, do the pidyon when he's 30 days old, teach him Torah, get him married, and teach him a profession. Some say also to teach him to swim. Okay. The Talmud asks this question: Lelamdo minalan. How do we know? How do we know that he has to teach his son? Here, this is on page 29b of Tractate Kiddushin. Lelamdo Torah minalan. How do we know that the father must teach Torah? Because it says v'limadetem otam et benechem. Teach those words to your children. And if one was not taught by his father, he should teach himself. Ihi menalan delam yihayva. How do we know that she is not obligated? Dichtiv v'limadetem ulmadetem. Kol shemetzuve lilmod metzuve lelamed, v'chol shone metzuve lilmod eno metzuve lelamed. The Torah says v'limadetem, but it could be read as ulmadetem, and you will learn. So the word teach, if it's in binyan pi'el, in the binyan kaved, it would be reflexive, teach others. But if it's binyan kal lemadetem lamad, it will be active. So you should learn. So the Talmud says, since the word velimadetem, you should teach, is written in a way that can be read, you should learn, then we know whoever is obligated to learn is obligated to teach. And because she is not obligated to learn, she is not obligated to teach. How do we know that she is not obligated to learn? Right? Wherefrom we derive that she's not obligated to learn? Because you could read velimadetem ulmadetem. Whoever is obligated to be taught by others, or the others are obligated to teach him, should teach himself. And if there's no obligation on others to teach him, he should not teach himself. And how do we know that the others are not obligated to teach her? Because Torah says, teach those words to your sons, not to your daughters. So that's where it's a very, very weak argument. The whole argument of women not learning Torah comes, and we'll see that later on, that will affect the mitzvot aseh shazman gramam. The whole argument of women not learning Torah comes from the default option of the text. The Torah constantly speaks about men and not about women. If you take it within the context of the text, right? what does it say? ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל לבביך. והיו דברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננת על לבביך ודיברת בם. The whole thing is written in the masculine. Are we going to say that only men are obligated to love God, and women are not obligated to love God? They are not supposed to think of the words of Torah. That is really far-fetched. But the rabbis isolated those four words. Velimadetem otam ed benechem. Teach those words to your sons, and not to your daughters. If the parents are not obligated to teach their daughters, the daughters are not obligated to learn. If the daughters are not obligated to learn, they're also not obligated to teach their children. That is one argument. Then, later on in the Gemara, it's in page 32. Here's another argument that has to do with honoring one's parents. מה תלמוד לומר איש סיפק בידו לעשות, אישה אין סיפק בידה לעשות. So they look at the pasuk, איש אביו ואמו תיראו. איש אביו ואמו תיראו. A man should fear his father and mother. So if you take it in the way of Dibra Torah Kilshon Bnei Adam, the Torah speaks the vernacular, Torah speaks in the way which is understood. We understand that when it says ish means each and every one of you, as it says in other places, ish mi bnei Israel. It doesn't always say kol ish or isha. That means everyone, men and women. What do we want the Torah to say? Ish ve'isha aviv ve'aviha imo ve'ima tirau. It will be hard. It will be not, a cumbersome language. But the rabbis here also took it literally and said, why does the Torah say ish imo ve'aviv tirau? A man shall fear his mother and father, because a man is on his own and he could respect his parents and do whatever is needed for them, while the woman is under the authority of her husband. So they didn't even consider the possibility of not married women. Why would the Torah make? I want to show the flaw of this midrashic interpretation, to say when the Torah says ish imo v'aviv tirau, a man should fear his father and mother, it refers only to men, is really a problematic statement. And more mitzvot. So here, finally in Daf 33b of Kiddushin, the Talmud gets to analyze the Mishnah. The Mishnah said as a general rule, Kol mitzvat aseh shazman grama, all time-bound mitzvot, women are exempt. So Tanu Rabbanan, now the rabbis commented on that, which is a time-bound mitzvah, Sukkah velulav, shofar v'tzitzit. So sitting in the Sukkah, holding a lulav, blowing the shofar and wearing tzitzit, and wearing tefillin. Ve'ezo hi mitzvat aseh shelo azman grama, and which are the positive mitzvot that are not time-bound? Mezuzah, ma'akeh, aveda, v'shiluach haken. Having a mezuzah at your house, building a rail on the roof to prevent people from falling, returning a lost object, and sending a nesting bird away. I'll just comment that the tzitzit and tefillin, to argue that they are time bound because you don't use them on Shabbat or in festivals is hard, because some say that you could use them. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Now the Gemara asks this question: Uchlalahu, how can you make such a rule to say that all time bound mitzvot women are exempt from? Harei matzah, simha, hakel, de mitzvat aseh shazman grama, v'nashim hayavot, vetu, harei talmud Torah, priya urviya, pidyon haben. Let me show you the exceptions to the rule. First, matzah, eating matzah on Pesach, that women are also obligated. Simha, rejoicing during the holiday. Hakhel, gathering to Yerushalayim on the 7th year. The Torah says specifically, Hakhel et anashim ve'ataf, and that only happens on Sukkot every 7 years. and all these are time bound, and women are still obligated. And then on the other side we have Talmud Torah, Priya Verivya, being fruitful and multiplying, and Pidyon Ben, redeeming the firstborn, that are not time bound, and women are exempt from them. Amar Rabbi Yohanan. So the answer to that, En lemedin min hakelalot. One cannot learn practical halakha from general statement, or meaning one cannot take the statement of a general rule to exclude all other possibilities. The general always has exemptions. Even when the word except for is mentioned. But the problem with that statement is, when you say that there is an exemption is when you have a list of, let's say, 4 items and there's one exemption. Here, the mitzvot that are listed as having a common denominator of being time bound are 5: Sukkah, Lulav, Shofar, Tzitzit, Tefillin, and the exemptions are 3 each. So it would be easier to say women are exempt of these mitzvot and obligated in these mitzvot without making the rule. There's no room for that rule. So now the Talmud asks this question: Mitzvat aseh shazman grama nashim peturot minalan. How do we know that women are exempt from mitzvat aseh shazman grama, from time bound mitzvot? Gamar mitefilin. Ma tefillin nashim peturot. Just as women are exempt from tefillin, so they are exempt for all time bound mitzvot. Now, how do we know that they are exempt from tefillin? Tefillin gamar la mitalmud Torah. That we learn from Talmud Torah that we already discussed before. Ma Talmud Torah nashim pturot, av tefillin nashim pturot. Just as they are exempt from Talmud Torah, they are exempt from tefillin. But remember that to say that they are exempt from Talmud Torah was based on taking the default option of using the masculine and say that it is specific. It's not a default option, but rather specifically commanding only men and not women to study Torah. So the Gemara asks these questions: V'nakish tefillin limzuzah. Why do you compare tefillin to Talmud Torah when you can compare tefillin to Talmud Torah? So for that we have to go 1 second to the original text in Devarim. And I mean, we read it every day in the Shema, but let's see what the Talmud made of it. Even 1 second. So here's the text in Devarim. That's the second parasha of Shema, Vayim Shamua. So what do we find here? It says this: V'ayu letotafot ben einechem. Right? This is tefillin. V'semtem et dvarelev ukshatem otam leot al yedchem. This is verse 18. V'ayu letotafot ben einechem. Then the next pasuk Yutet. V'limadetem otam et benechem. This is about Talmud Torah. And then verse 20. Uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha u'visharecha. This is the obligation of mezuzah. So the Talmud says the tefillin were compared to Talmud Torah, just as tefillin, just as women are exempt from Talmud Torah, they're exempt also from tefillin. The Talmud asks, "V'nakish tefillin limzuzah." Why don't you compare the tefillin to the mezuzah? Because it says those 3 concepts are mentioned together. The way the rabbis understand tefillin, Talmud Torah, tefillin in verse 18, Talmud Torah in verse 19, and mezuzah in verse 20. So the answer of the Talmud is tefillin leTalmud Torah itkish ben beparasha rishona ben beparasha shniya, tefillin limezuzah beparasha shniya la itkish. That both in both the first and the second parasha of Shema, the 2 are compared. 1 second. I can open all the text in front of me at one time. In the first parasha of Shema, the Torah, we have Ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'ayu letotafot ben einecha, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. The Talmud says that in the first parasha of Shema, actually the Tefillin and Talmud Torah are written together, because first Talmud Torah is mentioned, then Tefillin, then Mezuzah, right? But that argument doesn't hold water, because in both cases, Tefillin and Talmud Torah and Mezuzah are all written as a bundle, 3 mitzvot together. How can you separate and say that only one of them is comparable to only one other of them? That is the problem that I see in this biblical text, in this Talmudic text. I will go once again to the Talmud, and you see what it says. V'nakish mezuzah leTalmud Torah. So the Talmud says, so maybe we should compare mezuzah to Talmud Torah and say, just as women are exempt from Talmud Torah, she should also be exempt of the obligation of mezuzah. The Talmud answers, La sal kadatach, this is impossible. Why? Dichtiv lema'an yirbu yemechem. The Torah says, follow these mitzvot, observe these mitzvot, so you will have long life. Would you think that only men need long life and women do not need long life? So that argument of women need life, it was used as an excuse to obligate women to have mezuzah at the house, but it was limited to only the last pasuk, and that is a problem, because when you read the full text, starting from velimadetem otam, Torah says this: velimadetem otam et benechem lederba muchtavtam al mezuzot betecha v'sharecha leman yirbu yemechem. When one reads the whole thing, and it says, let's actually go from the beginning of that segment. If you will follow the mitzvot and you will love God and you will serve God, I will bring rain in its season. Beware, don't deviate, do not follow idols, do not bow down to them. Rather, put those words on your heart and on your in your soul. Tie them on your hand, tie them between your eyes. Teach them to your children. Write them on the doorposts in order for you to have long life. This last pasuk of "in order for you to have long life" refers to the whole text and not only to the last statement. That's why I said that this whole argument of mitzvot shazman grama has no. I mean, if you want to argue that it was a tradition, that's something else. If they had an oral tradition that said, we know that women are exempt from those mitzvot, that it would be hard to refute. But if it's based on text, there's no basis in the text for it. It's very, very feeble. The whole argument is flawed. And the Talmud there goes on to explain all the other exemptions, why there are exemptions at all. So, okay, with that, we could return now to the discussion of Rav Gedalia Bar Yahya.
Thank you for taking this detour.
Thank
a lot.
Thank you. It's important. Where is this text?
Can I ask a question before we move on?
Yes, 1 second. Yes, go ahead.
And we don't have to go down this path anymore if we shouldn't, but are we meant to read exempt as forbidden?
No, definitely not. Later on, there were those who wanted to say that exempt is forbidden. Yes, on certain things, like what about tefillin? But we'll see that Rashba, Rabbi Shlomo ben Adret says that women are, if they want to put tefillin and say the bracha for them, they are allowed. Yeah, and I think, go ahead.
The list of, Tzukah, Lulav, Shofar, Tzitzit, Tefillin, obviously women in the Orthodox world are not wearing tzitzit or tefillin.
Right.
They are sitting in a sukkah, and they're just not getting the mitzvah of setting the sukkah, but they're still allowed to do it, as opposed to tzitzit and tefillin are forbidden.
Right.
It's like there's a split with what happens with these that stay in one category, but then it seems like they go to two different categories. I don't know.
Right. So where did this come from? That's a good question. Where did it come from? Why is it that? And one second, you know you don't see the screen. I'm just pulling up this material. Why is it that with sukkah women sit in the sukkah, but in with tefillin, with other things, they wouldn't put on tefillin and all that. I think that the answer has to do with the question of the social circle, and it's like the territory. It's a territorial question. It's a territorial issue. The synagogue for men has become that sacred, their sacred territory that they don't want women to trespass, and that's why we find in different settings halachot that were meant to limit, even when there was no reason to limit it, to limit the woman's presence in that sacred space or territory. So, for example, we find in Germany in the 12th century the idea that women who are, during their nidah cannot come into the synagogue. There was no real reason, there was no basis in halacha for that. Some say that the women took it upon themselves, but the rabbis embraced it gladly, to say, "Oh, great! The women are not even interested in being part of the prayer or in the synagogue, and they only allow them to come during the high holidays." Same thing for reading the Torah. Why doesn't a woman read the Torah? Say mipnei kavod hatzibur. Kavod hatzibur means that the woman invades that space, sacred space of men in the synagogue. And I could tell you, from personal experience, that I've seen in many cases that men view their the prayers and the services as sort of a private men's club. There's a certain camaraderie that happens there, especially during in the weekday minyan, especially during the winter when it's hard to get up and get there, and they're all gang ho, let's go and go to the synagogue. And women, on the other hand, would say, in an envious way, I wish I could do that. I have, I don't. My schedule doesn't allow me to do that. I offered my wife to trade with me. I said, "You're welcome to go instead of me." She says, "I'm okay with that." But I think that's where we go. Sukkah is at home. It's the family, the meal. So we will feel it's okay if it's okay. We'll allow women to come and sit in the sukkah, or they don't feel comfortable to telling them not to be there. Although there are situations where the sukkah is small or only half kosher, and then they will say, "Oh, women will sit here and men will sit here." Tefillin, and now if we go with that, I think that also explains why men would be much more, Orthodox men or traditional men will be much more upset when they see a woman wearing tefillin than when they see a woman wearing tzitzit. Because the tzitzit is a garment, it's a general, even though it's associated with Torah, with prayer, but it's easier to put on. It's not something that is unique, as unique to men as tefillin. With tefillin, this is a very specific object that belongs to them. It is celebrated at the bar mitzvah. So for a woman to do that is really to take away their personal space. So I think that's why those things evolved in that manner. Okay, so let's go back to the text of Rabbi Gedalia. So we got to this section of talking about the mitzvot that are specific to men versus women, and we did a long detour, but it's really an important sugya. This is one of the essential issues about women's status in Judaism. And Rabbi Gedalia ibn Yahya argues that because she's more important, because she's more spiritual or better connected to God, she needs less mitzvot. As Grossman comments here, that some of the scholars came with a exactly opposite argument, and because a woman has to serve her husband and has chores at home, she cannot have so much time dedicated to following the mitzvot. And we saw that in the Talmud already, when the Talmud speaks about the the mitzvah of kibud avayim, honoring one's father and mother, and the Talmud says, Isha en sipek beyada, she doesn't have the time which will allow her to do that. So let's see what Rabbi Gedalia says here. He says, Mashal lemelech sheyesh lo me'a anashim muchanim leshareto. This is analogous to a king who has 100 people who serve him. Lerubam natan melachot. Most of them were given specific tasks, como Sarah Mashkim, Sarah Ofim, Sarah Tabahim, the cupbearer, the royal baker, the executioner, etc. Ra'a benehem sarisim miyuhasim. Amar la'ele lo atzaveh melachot. Among them he saw important ministers, and he uses the word saris here, not in its specific form of eunuch, but rather as a minister, which appears at the end of Balachim and Divrei Hayamim. And he says, I see those prestigious people, and I decided, he says, La'ele lo atzaveh melachot. I will not assign specific tasks to those people. Omnam רצוני שיאכלו וישתו ואיתי יבואו לטייל, או כשיצטרך איזה שירות קל לקח לי מהם. So I want them to be able to drink and eat and stroll, and whenever I need something light, I will ask them to do it. Similarly, לנשים לא ציווה אלא שלוש מהם, שהם נידה, חלה והדלקת הנר. The women were only given 3 mitzvot, which are נידה, separation of challah from the dough, and lighting candles. ומעט מצוות עשה שלא הזמן גרמה, and some positive mitzvot that are not time bound. וזה כי ראה אותם מיוחסות ושלמות בבריאתן, because Hashem saw that they are prestigious and perfect from creation, and only few merits would suffice to bring into the world to come, to the life of perfection. So okay, we got the letter Zayin, the 7th article of Gedalia ben Yahya. הגברים שמחים בנשים ומעוניינים להביא אביאן אל בתיהם כהבאת זהב ומרגליות, והדבר מעיד על מעלתן. גם ריבוין המספרים מסייע לכך. The men rejoice with women, and they are interested in bringing them to their house, to getting married, the way one brings gold and pearls, which shows their advantage. Or they also are greater numbers of women than men. I'm not sure what is the ratio today in the world. I think they're pretty much the same, but
it depends where.
Right. Okay. I'm talking about
natural ratio is about 104, 106 women for every 100 men.
Right.
In China, after decades of
male selection,
unnatural selection, let's call it. The ratio is about 130 men for every 100 women. Yeah,
so, which creates problems. And in medieval times, and even today, where in war-ravaged countries, the ratio is usually higher. A lot more women per man, because men lose their lives in war, and that's what he was looking at. There is an interesting thing, in the book I told you about, The Red Queen by Matt Ridley, where he speaks about the gender wars between men and women that goes on at the level of the DNA, at the genetic level, that there are families where there is a possibility to have generations upon generations of women only. One family in France with between all the sisters and aunts, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, were all about 70 women, not one male fetus. So I was saying it's worth reading the Red Queen, Matt Ridley, and to the second part where he speaks about humans, and I think a lot of insights regarding that constant war that we see on the surface between men and women come out from there. But this is definitely an interesting concept. This is the fact that men are those who usually seek out women and want to get married. We still have, sometimes we say, no, it's just chivalry, it's manners, it's societal norms, but I think there's something deeper here, that the woman tells the man that you have to win me over, you have to convince me that you're worthy of me. And that is what he says here, and he sees it as an advantage, obviously. 8, That is interesting. Hashem bahar beisha liot molidat ha'iladim b'shel ma'alotea fiziot. The woman was chosen to be the one who bears children because of her physical advantages, attributes. Tuv ta'ama shel ha'isha v'yofi v'hadar u'mitikud dama midvash. She has good taste and good. She's gracious. She's beautiful and glorious, and her blood is sweeter than honey. Whereas the man is full of evil character traits. Vayivizbo ki ma'as techunato hara'a dal ge'eh achzar mitmarmer. He's really Gedaliah speaks harsh words against men. He says the men were rejected by God because he disliked his evil character traits. Dal ge'eh is a combination that is mentioned already in Tanakh as something which is distasteful, and that is an arrogant poor man, or meaning someone who has nothing to be arrogant for. Not that the poor man necessarily is lacking, but that refers to someone who's poor, but is too proud to get help. So man is poor, whatever it is that is missing, and he's too proud to seek help. Maybe he was talking about asking for directions while driving. Right, this is where you see men as dal ge'eh. Men would never, and that's also something that Deborah Tennant brings up in her book. That the reason men refuse to ask for directions is that they see it as weakness. Asking for information is showing that you're weak, and they're not willing to do that. To their great relief,
okay, well, I'm usually the one before the advent of maps. I was the one that didn't want to ask directions.
Okay. I said we have to be careful with the economist statement.
There's something to this. I mean, no offense meant to any individual man, but overall, I don't see women having started too many of the wars in the world.
That's true. So, that's definitely true.
There's something to it that I've asked myself this so many times. Why are most men, I shouldn't say most, why are such a great percentage of men so full of rage and so evil and so full of horrible impulses, and they ruined this world? I've asked myself this many times.
So part of it is natural evolution and selection. It's testosterone, it's hormones, it's the men have evolved to provide for women, because women wanted from men that ability to provide and protect their children. So it goes back and forth. Like I said, it's worth it to read The Red Queen by Ridley. Also, E.O. Wilson is a evolutionary biologist who speaks about the evolution of society of mankind, and also Robert Sapolsky is a primatologist and sociologist, I think from Princeton. I'm trying to think which one of his books that he wrote about that. You'll if you Google Sapolsky. I just got a new book by him, Behave, but I don't have time to read it yet. So I'll tell you when I go through it. But it is true that I forgot where when I heard that a program about the question of matriarchal versus patriarchal societies, and the researchers spoke about there's only one society on earth today, as far as we know, that is completely matriarchal, led by women. It's in India, society in India, and where women are the breadwinners and they run society. Men do everything as they are being told by the women, and it's a very peaceful inlet within India. And in one incident, one of the researchers tells a story where they left the hotel and they forgot all their cash, a stash of cash in the room, open, like accessible to anyone. And when they came back, it was there, nobody touched it. And they asked the janitor who was working there, he says, "You saw that, why didn't you just grab the money and run? You could have gone to, somewhere else." He says, "Where would I go? Or why would I go?" I said, "Why would I go anywhere?" He's so comfortable where he is. So there is. I think that you're right. That maybe there's still hope. If we have more women getting into the House of Representatives, into the legislation, that things will change. But not only in America, around the world. This argument, going back to the argument of Gedalia ben Yahya, of why women were chosen to give children, obviously is the question of the egg and the chicken, right? Because a man, as is built now, would not be able to have children. But this is an argument that I heard from my wife, and I think many other people agree with that. That if the role of delivering children was given to men, very quickly the world would come to an end, because men would not be willing to go through such suffering as women do, even with epidural, even all the new technology. And okay, that's actually his next argument. It's true. Women are more willing to dedicate time, and that is not only with children. In general, the endurance ability of women is greater than men in comparison to body size or muscles or anything. Men could be stronger quantitatively, but qualitatively, women could go to perform over longer periods, tasks. And it says that's why she was charged with giving birth, being pregnant, giving birth, raising children. It says, "Kites v'choref lo yimna'uha, achila b'shana lo yi'ikuha, mila'asot kol hamitztarech legidul banea." Nothing will stop her, not summer, not winter, not the lack of food or sleep, from doing everything that is needed for raising his children. And that is also true. Not just now. One could argue not just because the woman is a woman versus a man, but because of the physical process that happens in the body, that direct and immediate connection. If men would have been the one who bear children, maybe it would be the same for them versus the women. But that is a true observation. Number 10, men was filled with Adam. We're talking about Adam, the first man, was filled with great joy when he saw Hava. He said, "Zot hapa'am me'etzem me'atzamai uvasar mi besari." Now this is my true mate, and it seems that it was because he recognized her advantages. In the words of Rabbi Gedalia, "Kasher ra'a kli hemdan nehmat kazeh uvri'a yafa v'hasuda azot nitmale simcha." When he saw this precious creation, beautiful and pious, he was filled with joy, and therefore she deserves respect. He should respect her more than respect himself. Thinking of that, one might say that maybe the reason that God kept the creation of women, it was done in that way, that first all the animals were presented to men, and he realized there's nothing there for him, and then the woman was brought to him, is for him to appreciate, because even as it is now, there are situations where men do not appreciate enough what women do, whether they are their spouses or other women in their lives. And maybe that story was meant to tell, if not for the that march of animals in front of Adam, when he realizes that every other species has as a mate and he is alone, he wouldn't have that craving for women. And I tried to visualize it once. How exactly did it happen? We don't know that it happened right away. Maybe it happened after a while. Maybe God let Adam live for a while, a month or 2 or 3 before men was looking for a helpmate. Maybe if it was Adam would be like the typical American male. By the time God brings him his helpmate, the house is filled with cans of beer. He can't reach the remote. And he says, "I need someone to help me." That's when God says, "Okay, I'll give you a helpmate." I was just kidding. In letter Yud Aleph, we says this: "Hakadosh Baruch Hu bara et Adam michutz leGan Eden." Man was created outside Gan Eden, whereas the woman was created inside of Gan Eden. despite the sin of in letter Yud Bet 12, though the woman is described as one who committed a sin in the garden in Gan Eden, following the act of eating from the fruit of knowledge, she is described as one who is equal to the men from an intellectual point of view. That is, the Torah says, the eyes of both of them opened up. So there's an equal impact on both Adam v'Hava. ומכאן ששניהם חכמים ונביאים במדרגה אחת. They are both wise and they are both prophets, and she's even better than him. Rabbi Gedalia says that she is the one who influences him while he is stricken with fear and anxieties. Another advantage that he sees here in Neder Yud Gimel is that a woman does not demand sexual relationship where a man does that, and that shows that she is more modest or timid, and that is an advantage. ובזה נראים בה תכונות טובות ומידות הגונות ויחס נפלא וטובה רבה יותר מהאיש. יחס נפלא sounds so much like modern Hebrew. In modern Hebrew we say, oh, איזה יחס נפלא, what great treatment, right? Great attitude. But here, יחס is from the word yihus, like high level. So she has good character traits, her manners are perfect, she has the heritage is wonderful, and greater goodness more than men. Whereas we saw that he quotes Avar Banel, sees that as a point of inferiority, that she's not incapable of asking what she needs, and that is sort of a punishment that God gave her. And here is another argument that he makes, that according to Grossman is because of the reality that he was familiar with, and that's later Yudalet. He says, Almana ha'avela al mot ba'ala noheget berisun ובצניעות, בניגוד לאלמנה מחפש לו מיד נשים אחרות. A woman who loses her husband is usually more reserved, and she's not rushing to get married again, whereas a man does it right away. And so I'll read what he wrote, but it's interesting to say that here he contradicts the Talmud, because the Talmud says that a woman always wants to get married because tav lemeitav tandu milemeitav armelu. It is better to sit together with someone than living as a widow, and even if that someone is not worthy. So according to the Talmud, and that's, remember, still with the negative mentality of the Talmud, a woman would marry anyone just not to be alone. Whereas Rabbi Gedalia ibn Yahya says this: Hine be'inenu אנו רואים בכל יום צניעות האלמנה לכבוד אישה שמת שנים הרבה. We see the modesty, more than modesty, it's intimacy, the intimate relationship that a widow maintains with the memory of her dead husband, even if many years passed since then. ורוב השתיקה, she keeps quiet, וסגירתה בבית, she refuses to travel too much, ואנינות הרבה, and she shows sorrow. מתראה אהבתה לאישה. Through that one can see the woman's love towards her husband. מה שאין כן האנשים, and that is unlike the men, כי כגיבורים אחרי שעברו 7 ימי אבלות, like soldiers, or meaning like people who are in the battlefield where there are no women, and they feel all with their comrades in this spirit. הולכים בשווקים ורחובות בכל צהלה ורינה. They walk through the streets, through the markets, showing joy and happiness. ומשקיפים בחלונות לנשים, and they look through the windows for women that they might like to get married with, and they find consolations with their friends, and they even go and participate in feasts and in parties. So that's a general statement. Maybe it was more common in his time. I can think statistically of people that I know more widowers that remarried than widows that remarried, but in my direct family, my wife's grandmother lost her husband when she was in her 30s, and she never married again. And she was really that reserved person who stayed home and constantly spoke about him. And my grandfather lost his wife when they were in their 40s, and he also never married again, and always had this air of sadness, like he never overcame that, to the point where my oldest sister was named Haviva after my grandmother. My grandfather wasn't able to call her by name. That was probably more than 10 or 15 years after his wife passed away. Should be maybe 7 years after his wife passed away, but until she was 7 or something, which really is 15 years, I still remember that he wouldn't call her Haviva. He would call her Pichkuna, which means like little one in affection name in Arabic, until he was able to bring himself to use her name. So that is, I think, very particular, very specific to both men and women. Statistically, maybe it is more. Women keep more loyalty. It's harder for them to connect to another person as widows, but there are exceptions. In letter Tedvav 15, he speaks about women's intellectual ability, and he says this is known throughout all nations. He says Shanashim Movanot, meaning Nevonot, they are wise. V'yesh gam lahen sechel ubina le'avin kol chokhmot. They have the wisdom and intelligence to understand all kind of all fields of knowledge. Kemo shekatavti le'el, as I have written previously, and has been written by all other authors in many different languages. Grossman says that this is a surprising statement that could be understood with the backdrop of the Renaissance, but only partially. And it is true, even during the Renaissance, there were Renaissance women who were very knowledgeable and talented, but the attitude towards the intellectual capacity of women has not changed much until the 18th, 19th century. I mentioned those studies, sort of the pseudo-scientific studies of phrenology, of the size of the cranium, of the brain, that were conducted by French scientists, and even in the not too distant past, we have the statements from the dean of Harvard that women are not able to study certain things, and still in Silicon Valley there is still this struggle where intellectual prowess is treasured, that there are not enough women who are coders. So we still have that bias. And it's surprising to see it from Rabbi Gedalia ben Yahya. He says in letter 16 that women take a much greater part in raising children and taking care of them on an ongoing basis. In letter 17 here, Sherry, he agrees with you about men's share in waging wars in the world. They wage war, they participate in them. Lefi שנושא רומח וחרב, ובהם מכה והורג האנשים. He carries a spear and a sword, and with them he kills other people. ושולח מדנים ושנאות בין אדם לחברו, and he instigates hatred and animosity between one person and another. ועושה מלחמות, and wages wars. Whereas the woman focuses on raising her children. I think that's maybe in that context. Remember what Golda Meir said, that when she spoke about the war with Egypt and the surrounding Arab countries, that she spoke about, I've heard the exact phrase, that what hurts her, or she said that there will no peace until they will love their children more than they hate us. Right? That was the phrase. So imagine if women who would lead countries would think in that way. We love our children and we don't want anyone to die, and that would come from both sides. And yes, maybe there would be less wars. In 18, it says that according to the astronomers, the woman has more respectable symbols in the zodiac. the correspondent says it's not clear what is here. I know that it's on letter 18. In letter 19, he says most of the words in with the positive meaning in Hebrew has a feminine form. רוב הדברים הטובים בלשון נקבה, כמו תורה, שבעה כוכבי לכת, מזלות, חוכמות, צדקה, מעון ורגל. Not everything here is accurate. Number 20, הרהורי עבירת העריות. Women are less consumed with thoughts about sexual activity than men, driven by desire. It says, "Hi mitiv'a kara v'laha v'hiluch hamezek." Kara v'laha is cold and humid, is based on the theory of the four flames of the Greeks. They're cold and hot, dry and humid. It says, "Migizrat habore." לשים בטבע האישה שתהיה קרה ולחה, so she's driven by the element of ice and water, למען לא תהיה כל כך שלבת חמימות, זה החטא מקנטר אותה כמו לאיש. Because man, on the other hand, is burning with desire, and he pursues that sin of forbidden sexual activity, and that is part of the glory of the woman. And let's see if we manage to finish the 24 yet. We have 4 more. האישה מטבעה קרובה יותר למזג ממוצע לעומת חמימות האיש. The woman is more balanced than the man who tends to go to extreme with his hot-headed character. 22, it's a little, and it's funny that according to the philosophers, the person has a softer flesh and organs is wiser, has greater intellectual capacity, and that is the woman. In 23, he says that בשיר השירים בחר שלמה המלך באישה כדי לשמש סמל לעניינים אלוקיים. In the Song of Songs, Shlomo chose the woman to be the symbol of the divine matters, ללמדך שהיא מיוחסת יותר מכל ברואי מטה, to show that she is greater than all other beings. That is, Grossman comments here that this follows the opinion of many Jewish philosophers in medieval times who understood Shir HaShirim as a praise of logic and philosophy. But I think you could add to that, if not only Shir HaShirim. First of all, Shir HaShirim is written from the point of view of a woman, and it rebukes the man for not being able to make up his mind and decide what it is his purpose in life. But if we really look into the writings of King Solomon, of Shlomo HaMelech, we could also look at the book of Mishlei, where all the positive character traces, Chokhmah, Binah, wisdom and intelligence are described as in the feminine, as a woman. And finally, in 24, Ashma Aikari, the blame for eating from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden is the man's and not the woman's. This is major deviation from the text and from the interpretation of the rabbis. Why is that? לא חקר ודרש את משמעות דברי הנחש שנסתווה פה אל פה שלא לאכול ממנו. He should have spoken to the serpent and see what exactly does he mean. So we have to do that. We have to go to another midrash, and actually one where the rabbis did blame Adam, and not only they blamed Adam, they also blamed their colleagues who were too strict. They say this, that God told Adam not to eat from the fruit. Adam went to his wife, and he thought that because she's not, she doesn't have that strong character, she wouldn't be able to withhold herself and not eat from the tree, from the fruit, and therefore he added a fence. And that fence was, he told her, do not touch the tree. When the serpent spoke to the woman and he said, why don't you eat from the tree? She said, we were commanded not to eat and not to touch the tree. And when the serpent heard that, he pushed her, and she touched the tree, and the serpent says, see, you didn't die, it's all a lie, and then she ate from the fruit. And that is what Gedaliah ben Yahya is referring to say that when she brought the fruit to Adam and she said, here, eat from the fruit, I touched the tree and nothing happened, Adam should have spoken to the serpent and say, I know exactly what God told me, and we still didn't breach the prohibition. But also, what the rabbis use this story to say that it is extremely dangerous to put additional fences around the Torah, because you end up transgressing the core prohibition without realizing that. And that is something also that is found in the Talmud Yerushalmi on Masechet Shabbat, where I think in Mishnah Zayin, the Mishnah says that there were 18 decrees decided by Bet Shammai against Bet Hillel on a certain day when they voted, and there were more students of Shammai than students of Hillel. And the Talmud comments on that, that day was disastrous to the Jewish people as the day in which they made the golden calf. And the commentators explain that because they added fences and decrees, they caused people to eventually not observe the Torah. The more prohibitions you add, the more you cause people to be alienated from the Torah. So that is something that starts also with the Midrash saying, because you, Adam, added a fence and told the woman not to touch the tree, she ended up touching it and eating from it. So now Rabbi Gedaliah ben Yahya says, "Velo yikshe be'ainecha netinata elav apri le'echol," and don't blame her for giving him the fruit and offering him to eat from it. Sheraui la'atzila lelamed alei zchut. We must judge her favorably. Ki ha'aniya, the poor woman, nitpateta ledivrei hanahash. She was convinced by the serpent. Shehe'ida Torah shehu aru mikol hayat hasadeh. The Torah testified that he was the serpent was shrewd more than all other animals. Adraba lefi pshat ketuvim, according to the simple way of reading the text, or the direct way of reading the text, hi petura michol onesh. Mikol onesh, she is exempt of any punishment. Ve'adam hayav bechulam, and it is man who deserves all the punishment. Adam must have investigated the issue with Hava, with the woman. She's called Hava only after the expulsion from Gan Eden. With Hava, with the woman, and with the serpent. And because he didn't do that, it is his responsibility. So with that, we conclude the second section of Ma'alat HaNashim of Gedaliah ben Ibn Yahya. The first one was the 39 women that he mentioned, 37 of them from the Bible, and 2 from the post-biblical period, Yehudit and Beruya. And here, the 24 entries where he explains why women are superior to men. And next time we'll continue with the third part of Gedaliah, and then go back to other commentators who don't share the same positive view as him.